Welcome back to the London Free Press podcast. Thank you once again for joining us. I'm your host, Lindsay Barnett, and we are switching gears a little bit today. I'm joined by London Free Press sports reporter Ryan Pyatt. Ryan, how are you today?
Great, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I always look forward to our chats. I'm a big hockey fan, big Knights fan. That being said, I'm not as jazzed about our conversation today because it's not as shiny as I would like it to be. The London Knights, as of late, it's not been what a Knights fan is typically used to. So I've lived in London for 11 years now. I've been a fan since I moved here. And I don't know that I have ever seen such struggles in so many different areas with regards to the Knights. As a fan, we are used to this kind of elite level of play. I don't know that any other OHL team pumps out NHLers at the rate the Hunters and the Knights do. So let's there's a lot to unpack here with regards to the struggles that the Knights have been dealing with lately. Let's just what's been happening.
Yeah, well, just to add on to your experience with the Knights, like I've seen the team struggle at the start of the season where it didn't really have an identity, or maybe there wasn't a goalie, or they had to make a couple trades, and it'd be like, and it was like really bad, and they couldn't win, and you're like, oh my God, this looks like they're going to finish like maybe miss the playoffs, right? And then it wouldn't. They'd right themselves, and they'd go on a big winning streak, and they'd look like the best team in the league, and a lot of times it ended up where they were the best team in the league. So the timing of it, Lindsay, I think is the most interesting part. Is I can't recall one where it was this late in the season with like so much to and their position not established yet, like where you don't know if they're going to finish first, or will they drop out like down to fifth or something like that. I've never seen it like that, so I can see why. And I would say that my interaction with fans has become, it's the same thing, where it's like people are like breaking down the team and saying, well, here's the problems. And it really, it's multifaceted. There are a number of problems. It's not just one thing.
Absolutely. You make such a good point. I should have mentioned that. We've seen them try to figure things out in October and November, but this late in the season, it's kind of cringy, for lack of a better word. I'm a little nervous, to be honest. Goaltending, obviously a big issue right now. It's been a bit of a revolving door. Defensively, we're seeing some struggles happening. What's the latest? Because I know you spoke to Brett a couple of days ago. What's the latest with him and his ankle? I know he had minor surgery on it. What's going on there?
Yeah, I talked to Brett Brochu, and it was nice to talk to him. Usually I don't talk to injured players, but I thought this was kind of an exceptional circumstance. He means so much to the team. Him and Luke Evangelista, if you remember at the start of the year, like they're winning games like primarily because of those two guys and their performance. And that really no team in the Canadian Hockey League can afford to lose guys like that. And so the Knights did. And it was a huge impact. And I think also the timing of so when we were in Kitchener and he went down, and it was a freak. It was not like a Ranger ran into him or something. He just kind of collapsed in the crease and had to be helped off the ice. And that obviously that casts a pall over the entire team because they know what he means to the team. And the timing of it was terrible because it was the start of this stretch that of 8 games in 13 days, which the Knights have just finished. And that was, I haven't seen a stretch like that. That's kind of like a playoff. You don't even play that many games in a playoff series, right? You usually play like 7 and 14 if it goes the distance kind of thing. So this was an incredibly bad stretch. And this happened in the first game of that stretch. And so the Knights, and it came in, where in March where, your team's set. There's not much you can do anymore. It didn't happen in the fall or something where you can say, oh, we got to go trade for a goalie or, like a goalie. Now, a lot of people are talking about, well, why did the Knights trade Matt Anushka? And, Brett kind of addressed that. The plan this year, like it was when Michael Hauser was here and when Tyler Parsons was here, but Tyler, got hurt, so he couldn't do it. But that was to play 60 games. And so that means, Matt Anushka is a 19-year-old. and deserves to play. At this point, he deserves to play. So they traded him to Windsor, and he's become Windsor's starting goalie. And Windsor just took over first place. So it does look like there's a ricochet there where it's like, what are Mark and Dale Hunter doing here? They were trying to do right by a kid, and Brett addressed this. I stand behind them because the plan was for me to play 60, 62 games like Michael Hauser did 10 years ago. And that was and then play all the playoff games. And so trading Anushka left them a little bit vulnerable in the net, because then you have Owen Flores, who's a rookie. And remember, he's coming at this from the first time. He wasn't around last year because nobody was around last year because of COVID. So a real true 17-year-old rookie goalie. And he did tell me he played some games in the US, but it's not the same. It's not even junior hockey, right? Like it's like midget and stuff like that. So it's not the same. The shooting, as most goaltenders would tell you, the shooting as you go each level, it's a big eye opener for the level of shots and where they're placed and how hard they are each time you go up the rung. So that's tough. And then Owen Wilmore, who from St. Thomas Stars, and Aiden Barry have come in the last couple of weeks, and they're just like, that's like emergency, like put the thumb in the dike because it's leaking kind of thing, right? The old patch it up kind of thing, because even though Owen Wilmore is a prospect and he's won them some games, I mean, he's these guys are trying to become junior B starters. Aiden Barry's had a very good he's done very well in with the London Nationals too. But again, another big step for a guy that had hardly ever practiced before he got in against Sarnia. So yeah, Brett, Brett had minor surgery. I want to say over a week ago, and he has crutches and a boot. But if you know Brett Brochu, he's in the rink every morning at 8:00. This is his life. He eats, drinks, and sleeps hockey. So he's trying to get back as quick as he can. With this type of injury, I'm told it just depends on the individual. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It's just your own healing process. They like the month, they like the month or so. They keep talking about he should be back before the playoffs. And of course, he being, a confident 19-year-old kid said, you haven't seen the last of me, which is, we've heard this before, and then we've seen the last of the guy, but, you're hoping that, for the Knights' sake that he does get back in there. And, I don't think he's the kind of guy that prepares, and he's such a good player that he won't need a lot of, if he had to step in game one in a playoff series, he could brush the dust off and the rust off and basically a period kind of thing. So, but yeah, Lindsay, it's been interesting, and he's talking to these young goalies. He's trying to pump them up, but it's, his first year, he was surrounded by veteran goalies, and before he took on the big job, they brought in Dylan Miskew, who's at Western now, and so there was always that backup plan. These guys, there is no backup plan. It's like, you don't have an older guy there. It's sink or swim kind of each night, and the other teams know that, and right now the Knights are trying to outscore their issue, because frankly, I think these goalies have a lot of them have promise here. The three boys have promise, but you look at their stats. Like if you're a fan and you look at the stats, you're like, wow, this isn't good. It kind of like what the Leafs have been through. It's funny that there's a Mark Hunter connection there, formerly of the Leafs, but now he's facing some of the same troubles that his former co-assistant GM Kyle Dubas is facing in Toronto.
Absolutely. It very much was a all eggs in one basket kind of situation. And as a fan, I sincerely hope that we do see Brett back in time for the playoffs, but there's a real concern here. The last few games have been pretty high scoring, which I think is interesting in several facets. You don't often see such high scoring games on both sides. And I think the Knights, the last time they allowed 10 goals in was back in 05-06. Like it's been a very, very long time. If we're watching this team and Brett doesn't make it back for the first round of the playoffs, Do we think that there is a real chance here? Because I think the Knights are in third in the Western Conference right now. If they play Sarnia, I'm kind of watching, like, this year against Sarnia has been wild. They've dropped 6 of the last 7 meetings this season. And Sarnia is not normally as much of a concern as we're seeing this year.
Yeah. I want to say the last time they won the season, Sarnia won the season series with London, that Steven Stamkos was on the team. So you're going back 16 years or so, and a lot of coaches and GMs along the way. So, I think it's, I think there are a lot of times too much is made of the regular season head to head. I've seen teams beat other teams 6 times in a row during the regular season and own them, and then they lose a playoff series to them. So, but there are some indicators in this that London cannot stop the Sarnia's thing this year. It's not just that the Sarnia is winning. They're not just winning, like, fluking out a third period goal or something like that. They're scoring a lot of goals, And to me, that's a defensive structure system. Sarnia plays a similar style with Al Letang, very good coach. He helped Dale Hunter at the World Juniors a couple of years ago in Ostrava when they won the gold medal. But he's a real good coach, and he's playing more the Flint, Sault Ste. Marie, like high octane. Like we'll send 4 guys up, so we'll give up our zone to try to get a rush chance the other way. Is kind of the way Sarnia plays, and London's more. They like to, kind of grind it down low, and then defensively they like to stand at the red line or blue line and try to force a turnover to get the puck to Luke Evangelista and Stranges and those guys, right? So this has been a terrible matchup for them. And I want to point out, Lindsay, that Sarnia seems to score on them late in the games, and that's been a huge problem for the Knights. They've given up 16 goals in the third period in the last 4 games, and that's a ridiculous amount. I've seen like 2 months go by and the Knights haven't, when Knights have had their solid defensive structure, they haven't given up 16 goals in the third period for 2 months, and they've done it in 4 games here, so like a week. So, and Sarnia got 7 the other night in that 10-4. Like, people might forget, but the Knights were winning that game. And then after Sarnia took the lead, they had a goal, Sean McGurn, a goal called back for kicking it in, which was a disputed goal, but you got to shake it off and come back from it. And it totally, Sarnia just poured it on. And a lot of guys, so Sarnia would be really confident going into a series against the Knights for sure. And, it's one of those things, there's sometimes teams are bad matchups. Like sometimes your personnel, and we thought that with Guelph, like London and Guelph did not match up very well. London's kind of figured out. London hammered Kitchener 5 games. Now they can't beat Kitchener. And, it can only take 1 game that changes the tide. But, I can pretty much say I haven't seen a team handle the Knights quite like Sarnia has this year. And it's got to be concerning. And it's kind of like if you can win a couple of games or something and avoid that matchup, that might be that might be a good thing for the Knights. But, because they beat them with Brett Brochu and net too. So, they've thrown everything at the wall and it hasn't stuck yet. So good on Sarnia. And, Sarnia hasn't beat a lot of other teams. They seem to own London and they're still kind of scraping for the playoffs. So, it'll be, they play again last game of the season in London. So that'll be an interesting one to see how the points are in the standings and see kind of what happens and who the matchups kind of are at that point. On who's going to try to win that game.
Absolutely. We talk about third period woes, and I'm a Leafs fan, and that's all I'm seeing right now is like the third period collapse, and you just shake your head because you don't know what else to do. We've talked a lot about Brett during this podcast, and obviously the team is feeling his absence, but a couple weeks before his injury, we were seeing them drop some games, even if he does come back, because we are running out of time. What do you, if in your crystal ball, this is unfair, but I love to put you on the spot, what do you see for the Knights for the rest of the season, Ryan?
Well, I think they're going to, even if they get Brett Brochu back, they're going to be in tough in the first round of the playoffs. Like, this will be 1 year where, like, we used to just like say, okay, they're going to win in the first round, like no problem, right? And, they'll, maybe it'd go to 6 games or something like that, but they win it. This is going to be a year where they're going to have to really look at themselves. And I know they are right now, but this defensive structure they have, kind of a man-to-man, doesn't seem to fit the personnel they have right now. And the blue line's been kind of a problem all year. It was supposed to be the strength of this team was the defense, but as we know, Karel Steklov and Logan Mailloux came at midseason, and Logan, has not played very much hockey. He's been injured a lot, and the guys have been suspended, and a lot of has fallen on Jared Keane to play huge minutes, 30 minutes a night, and not too many guys in junior can handle playing half the game. So and that's kind of what we see. Like they will lock down a team like Guelph for Sarnia for 40 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and then kind of the big waterfall comes, and they can't really stop it. And it's going to be interesting to see. They got 3-3 coming up, so it'll be interesting against good teams. It'll be interesting to see if they can kind of turn this around, because now they've had some time off. They've been over that busy stretch. But yeah, Lindsay, first round's going to be a nail biter and a battle.
It's going to be all eyes on Brett Brochu and his return, potentially. Thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I look forward to our next catch up, and hopefully things are going in a different direction for the Knights. Really do wish them well. If you've been enjoying this, I say it every single week. Don't forget, you can always hit subscribe if you haven't done so. We are streaming on all of the major podcast platforms. We'll be back again next Thursday with another edition of the London Free Press podcast. Until then, stay well.